It was supposed to be just another family dinner, the kind Emily insisted we attend every few Sundays. Her family was tight-knit, loud, opinionated, and exhausting at times, but I showed up, smiled, and played the part of the supportive husband. This time, though, something shifted. The moment Sarah and Mark walked in, there was this unspoken tension. Sarah, Emily's cousin, looked off, like she'd already had 3 arguments before arriving. Mark was louder than usual, cracking dry jokes, masking discomfort with sarcasm. We were all seated when it happened. Mark made a joke, some offhand comment about Sarah's wild phase in college. He laughed alone. No one else joined in. Sarah froze. Emily's mom cleared her throat. My eyes met Sarah's unintentionally, and for the first time, something lingered in the way she looked at me. A silent thank you? A plea? I didn't know, but I felt it. The moment passed and conversation picked back up, but I was somewhere else mentally. I noticed Sarah being unusually quiet the rest of the evening, barely touching her food, eyes darting to the clock. Emily didn't seem to notice. She was too busy retelling a story about our last vacation. I caught Sarah looking at me again later, just briefly, before she dropped her gaze. We hadn't said more than 3 words to each other all night. When dinner finally ended and goodbyes were exchanged, Sarah hugged Emily first, then turned to me. It was quick, but her hand lingered for a half-second longer than a casual gesture should. Subtle, but I noticed. On the drive back, Emily laughed about Mark being his usual self, and said Sarah was probably used to it. I stayed quiet, unsure why it bothered me more than it should have. I didn't even like Mark. I told myself it was just discomfort from witnessing something awkward, but later that night, when Emily fell asleep beside me, I couldn't stop replaying Sarah's expression. I opened Instagram and saw she'd posted something cryptic. Just a black background and the quote, "It hurts most when the people closest to you look right through you." No context.
No caption.
I stared at it longer than I should have. I clicked on her profile, scrolled briefly, paused at a beach picture from last summer, and then locked my phone. The thing is, I never thought of Sarah like that before. We'd talked at family events, joked in passing, but nothing inappropriate. Still, now I couldn't stop wondering about that look across the dinner table, that silence between her and Mark, the way she clutched her wine glass like it was an anchor. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. People get emotional. Relationships have rough patches. It wasn't my business. But that night, with my wife asleep inches away from me, I realized I was thinking about someone else's marriage more than I was thinking about my own. And that, however small, felt like the start of something I wasn't ready to admit. The first message came 2 days later. Sarah replied to a story I posted. A picture of a sunset I'd taken during a late drive. She said it looked peaceful, said she wished she could escape sometimes. I kept my reply short, casual, but she responded again. Within minutes we were talking about the dinner, about Mark's joke. She laughed it off in text, said she was used to it, but I could tell it hit deeper. I asked if she was okay. She said she was tired of feeling invisible in her own home. That Mark didn't see her anymore. I didn't know what to say. I told her I understood. And I did, more than I wanted to admit. Over the next few days our chats turned longer. More frequent. Every night we talked. We started sharing things that went far beyond what we should have. She told me she used to love photography but hadn't picked up a camera in years. I told her I'd been feeling disconnected from Emily lately, like we were roommates passing time. She said she knew that feeling. She told me I deserved to feel seen. I didn't push back. It wasn't flirting at first, not exactly. But the subtext grew thicker with every conversation. The compliments came, subtle but there. She'd say things like, "Emily's lucky you actually listen." I started checking my phone more. I'd feel a strange rush seeing her name light up the screen. I kept the messages hidden. Not because they were inappropriate yet, but because I knew they could head there. Then came the photo. Just a mirror selfie. She wore a plain tank top and jeans. Not risque, but something about the way she captioned it felt cute today. Mark didn't notice. Made it feel different. I stared at it too long. My reply was simple. He's blind then. She reacted with a heart emoji. I didn't delete that message, even though I knew I should have. The guilt came in waves, usually at night. Emily would touch my shoulder while watching TV, and I'd flinch inside. She wasn't cold. She wasn't cruel. She was just distracted, tired, busy. Same as I was. But I was looking for connection somewhere else now. And it was growing. One night, Sarah sent a voice note. Her voice was low, tired. She said she hated how lonely she felt in a house full of noise. I listened to it twice. Didn't reply right away. Emily kissed me goodnight that night and whispered she missed us spending time together. I nodded, promised we'd do something soon. Then I rolled over and checked my phone. I hadn't touched Sarah. Hadn't even seen her since dinner. But I knew somewhere deep down, I'd already betrayed Emily. Not in the physical sense, but in intention. In secrecy. In heart. And if I was being honest, a part of me wanted to go further. Not for revenge. Not for thrill. But because being seen again felt addictive. It didn't feel like a setup. Not at first. Sarah messaged me late in the evening. Said she was overwhelmed and needed someone to talk to. She mentioned Mark was out with friends, and she just didn't want to be alone. I should have said no. Every instinct told me I was walking into something I couldn't undo. But I went anyway. Told Emily I had to grab something from the office. Made it sound casual, harmless. The drive over was quiet. My chest was tight the entire time, but I didn't turn back. She opened the door wearing a hoodie and leggings, nothing suggestive, but I saw the tension in her face. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. She didn't even try to act normal. Said Mark hadn't come home the night before. That he'd been sleeping at his brother's more often. She said she felt like a ghost in her own life. And I sat there listening, nodding, trying to say something useful. But all I really felt was how close we were physically, emotionally, like something had been building from the moment she looked at me across that dinner table. When she leaned her head on my shoulder, I didn't move away. Her hand touched my arm, and suddenly I wasn't thinking anymore. I kissed her. There was no hesitation. We crossed the line fully, completely, without a single pause to consider what it meant. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't romantic. It was need, fear, validation. It was two people doing something they both knew would wreck them, and choosing to anyway. Afterward, the silence was unbearable. She pulled the hoodie over her face, mumbled something about not wanting to talk. I got dressed quietly. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say much at all. She didn't ask me to stay. I left without looking back. My hands shook the entire drive home. I knew what I'd done. Knew the line I'd erased in one moment of weakness. And yet, even with all that guilt bubbling inside me, there was a darker truth I didn't want to face. I didn't regret it. That night, Emily was asleep when I came in. I stared at her for a while. Tried to summon some kind of courage to confess, but all I felt was shame. Not just for the act, but for the lies that came so easily now. I'd always thought I was a good man. Honest. Loyal. But it turns out all it took was one crack in the wall for everything to fall through. And the worst part?